The first speaker we have today is Amanda Lawrence, and Amanda is obviously very important. She's the project director for the Master Plan for Aging for the California Department of Aging. And as I was reading her background, what struck me was she's a fellow Badger. We're both graduates of the University of Wisconsin. I have a grad degree in labor relations and a law degree from Wisconsin. She has a master's degree in public health. And I was thinking, as I was about to introduce her, I said, you know what? I'm going to mention something very briefly that I think Amanda can appreciate, and that is something called the Wisconsin idea. And it's kind of inculcated in University of Wisconsin students. That's kind of the guiding principle for the university, and that is that the university should improve people's lives beyond the classroom, that it's our responsibility to take our knowledge and frankly, just make the world a better place. And so I am delighted that Amanda is leading this effort for the state, because I know she'll do a great job. She has served as a strategist and program consultant on several projects for the California Department of Public Health, including the launch of the department's Healthy Aging Initiative. She's, as I said, has a graduate degree in public health from the University of Wisconsin. She's worked all around the world on this project, including planning and implementation of community organizing efforts with and for older adults in Nicaragua. So with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Amanda Lawrence. Welcome.
Hi there. I'm going to screen share really quickly. Let's see if it works. And okay. Come on, go for it. Thank you, Mark. I'm always excited to meet someone who also went to University of Wisconsin. I think about Madison, Wisconsin almost every day. I absolutely adored my time there. Okay, well, anyway, I'm very happy to be with everyone today. I'm also stoked that Edie Yao, and we have Joy Moreno too. Edie was absolutely integral to the development of the Master Plan for Aging, and as our locals, and excited to have local presence and talk to you about what locals can do to implement the Master Plan for Aging and what your role is. We'll move on. So Master Plan for Aging, we launched on January 6th, earlier this year. Took a little longer than we thought. COVID set us back a little bit. We pivoted and then spent two months focused on COVID rapid response. So rather than an October release, we did January. It was released on our website. I'm sure everyone has checked it out. We also have the print copy available, and it of course included the data dashboard for aging and the local playbook. And we could just talk a little bit about how this all got started. Of course, the governor called for the creation of the master plan back in June 2019. And it's been a long time in the making, really. People have been asking for a master plan for aging for years. And so very excited that Governor Newsom decided to go ahead and advance this effort. And so not only did he call for the creation of this 10-year master plan for aging, but that we should also have a stakeholder advisory committee, a research subcommittee, and a long-term services and supports subcommittee, and to really ensure that we have stakeholders at the table to make sure this is a well-rounded, comprehensive, person-centered plan. And so why did we need this master plan for aging? So as we all know, folks are living longer than ever before. And California actually has the second longest life expectancy in the nation. I anticipate maybe there's going to be some change in that number following COVID, but we have a life expectancy of almost 82 years prior to COVID-19. And of course, there's disparities in that life expectancy. Black Californians have the lowest life expectancy in California at around 76 years. And then Asian American Californians have about an 86 or 87 year life expectancy. So you have like a 10 to 11 year gap. So we really wanted the master plan to acknowledge these inequities and the disparities that lead to these disparities in our life expectancy. And I want to point out that we want to take this life course perspective when we're talking about aging in the master plan. We don't believe that aging starts at 55 or 60 or 65. We want to be prepared to ensure that all residents have the opportunities we need to thrive as we age. One of our SAC members, or Stakeholder Advisory Committee members, Fernando Torres Gil, provided us with this quote, and he was our constant reminder to ensure that we really thought about that public health, whole person, cradle to grave perspective. And we also know that we'll have more older adults than ever before in California. So by 2030, we will have more older adults, those 60 and over, than those who are 18 and under. And then by 2060, almost 1/3 of the state will be 60 and over. And so we know that these changes are affecting us personally, and they're also affecting us societally. So we think about caregiving and retirement planning and our healthcare and our living arrangements personally. We actually have more multi-generational households in California than anywhere else, with 3 or more generations living together. There's different reasons for that. There's cultural, there's financial, there's the need to have a caregiver. But we also need to think societally about these changes, how it's impacting us with our policies, our healthcare and our long-term care financing, our community planning, and our pension systems. So essentially, what we've done, so far is really built a society based on these outdated demographics and outdated, really stereotypes about what it's like to age and to be an older adult. And so there's an obvious need to really rethink our systems and redesign our systems and structures. We also are going to see such a growing amount of diversity in our older adult population. So that we're going to have a more diverse older adult population than ever before. By 2030, white non-Hispanics will no longer represent the majority of older adults in California. And then by 2060, we'll only have about a quarter of older Californians being white non-Hispanic. So we really need to think about equity when we're creating our plans and our policies and our programs. We really, there's just like the racial and ethnic diversity has a lot of implications here. We need to think about our cultural responsiveness and our cultural competency. How we conduct research, how do we collect the data? Who is it really for? Is it being inclusive of everybody? How do we develop our workforce? Is our workforce reflective of the diversity of those who we serve? So policies and all of these different tools, that's how we can really advance equity in aging. So I hope that you'll see that the master plan for aging really took into account equity, health equity, social equity. And then really important to the master plan was that we ensured that all voices were heard in our planning process. This was a really rigorous, over 1 year long planning process of ensuring that we had public participation, but also stakeholder engagement. And so we had surveys, webinars, we had public meetings for public comment. We had several legislators who are key partners in this, of course, hosting community roundtables across the state. We had about 8 of those. And then the governor, his task force on Alzheimer's disease prevention and preparedness, obvious alignment there between their plan and our plan. So we joined forces back around March 2020. And that's been a fantastic relationship. And you can see throughout the master plan that there's quite an emphasis on dementia and Alzheimer's disease and preparing the workforce for that. We also have a cabinet work group. As Eric Dowdy mentioned in his video, we have buy-in from the governor, the governor's cabinet. We have buy-in from across California Health and Human Services Agency. So the cabinet level work group was absolutely core to the development of this. Our stakeholder advisory committees developed reports and recommendations that they handed off to the cabinet work group to work through and identify, what would be the core of our final plan that we put forward. And then of course, COVID-19, we did not want to just make a plan that didn't take into account our lessons learned from COVID-19. So we had a public survey available. We hosted several meetings with the secretary. Our equity work group put in a lot of extra work during COVID-19 to ensure that all of those, the horrible historical discrimination and oppression that really resulted in disparities, even more dramatic disparities in death and despair during COVID-19 were remedied, and we didn't have to feel the brunt of that in the future. And locals. So community and local engagement was also really important to the development of the master plan for aging. On our stakeholder advisory committee, we had Board of Supervisor Catherine Barger from LA District 5. We also had San Diego County and Los Angeles County presented on their county plans for aging at one of our stakeholder advisory committee meetings. We had hosted a town hall on combating ageism and promoting equity with San Francisco Health and Human Services and other partners. San Diego presented on their parks and recreation and intergenerational engagement work. Monterey presented on adult protective services, their collaborative approach down there. With Sonoma, Contra Costa, Santa Cruz, Ventura County, we hosted a series of webinars on all these areas of focus that were identified by our stakeholder advisory committee. And all those webinars are still on our website. You can find those. Talks about what the work locals were doing and how that could inform broader state level planning for master plan for aging. And then my director, Kim McCoy-Wade, and Health and Human Services Secretary Galley visited Los Angeles and Bakersfield to learn about work opportunities down there. So absolutely the value that counties bring to the master plan is immeasurable, and cities as well. And everyone doing work on the locals, the master plan, yes, it's a state plan. We have a lot of work cut out for us up at the state level, but we know that we want to be in partnership and ensure that there's a relationship and ongoing communication and support for our locals on the ground. So the master plan. So, we ended up with 5 bold goals and 23 strategies. And this came out of, over 800 recommendations from our stakeholder work group. So they are housing for all ages and stages, health reimagined, inclusion and equity, not isolation, caregiving that works, and affording aging. I'll just go through each one of these really quickly. So goal 1, housing for all ages and stages. This is a hot topic. Absolutely, we need to remedy how housing is developed and built, and we need more housing in California. And surprisingly, there's just not a lot of focus on older adults in the past, and a lot of stereotypes persist, such as older adults don't drive or just don't go out and leave their house. There's all these different stereotypes that sort of endure, and they actually are somewhat baked into policy and targets and indicators at this point unfairly. So when I think of this goal 1 area, to me, it's more about the livable communities, because it's not just about that one housing structure that we live in, but we want to ensure that everyone can live where we choose as we age, in communities that are age and disability friendly, as well as dementia friendly, and also climate and disaster ready. We have wildfire season starting earlier every year. We now have a drought. So we really want to be proactive about thinking, how can we ensure that older adults and adults with disabilities are able to actually access tools and information to stay safe during these disasters. And we want to be forward thinking about climate change. I mean, we know it's happening. We have to be adaptable and resilient, but we can also do things to remedy or prevent climate change. So the strategies in here include more housing options. Like I said, we just need more housing and more affordable housing in California. We need to think about things like accessory dwelling units and other options, just so everyone has a place where they feel like they fit in their home, because our needs change over the course of our lives. You might want a totally different house at 60 than you do at 80 or 70. Most people want to age in their own community. We also think about transportation in this goal area. We want to make sure that there is accessible and affordable transportation, public transportation options that can easily get people from point A to point B. We don't want people to have to go through the hassle of several different sorts of tickets when they cross county lines, or any, we want people to just not have to take 2 hours to go to the grocery store, when it really would be 15 minutes if you just had a car. And of course, people still want to drive, so we want to make sure that there's some driver safety protections out there. And then outdoor and community spaces for all ages is in this goal area. We really want to ensure that parks are really age and disability friendly. Older adults make up the majority of parks and recreation volunteers, but they only make up about 4% of the people who actually use parks. So what's going on there? Why aren't these parks more friendly and amenable? Why aren't they drawing older adults in? There's opportunity there for intergenerational engagement as well. And I mentioned a bit about emergency preparedness response and climate-friendly aging. And climate-friendly planning is the same, like age-friendly is it's kind of, we're thinking a little bit green. We're thinking about environmentally friendly systems built for all ages and everyone to have access. So goal 2 is health reimagined. And our goal here is that we will all have access to the services we need to live at home in our communities and to optimize our health and quality of life. So we really want to close that equity gap that I talked about earlier and increase our life expectancy. So strategies are bridging healthcare with home. I think this is probably an area of focus for most of the folks on this call. This is really about expanding access to long-term supports and services and integrative healthcare. So we want to do a lot of exploration of how can we ensure that folks are able to stay at home and have the support they need. Do we need to have a backup provider system for IHSS? We also need to modernize our community supports, like community-based adult services and the multi-purpose seniors service program. And then let healthcare as we age is another strategy, along with lifelong healthy aging and geriatric care expansion. These all focus really on that prevention side, the promoting wellness across the life course. but also addressing some issues within our healthcare system. We don't really have very many doctors or clinicians really who are trained in geriatrics. And of course, older adults would really benefit from cross-disciplinary teams that are trained in geriatrics. So a social worker and a nurse and the physician all having that geriatric care training would definitely behoove the health and well-being and longevity of older adults. We have in here, for example, expanding the geriatric um, emergency department certification program. We have quite a few of those in California. West Health down in San Diego has taken the lead on this. So we really want to promote that sort of concept, these standards where health centers need to have the right training and the knowledge of geriatric concerns. Dementia in focus is another one of our strategies here. We have a lot of mention of dementia threaded throughout the master plan because really we want to ensure that our research that we're doing, addresses the disparities, particularly those who are experienced by women, especially women of color. And we want to make sure that the treatments and the standards are all elevated a bit. And then we also want to make sure that we have a workforce that's trained to be able to serve those who have dementia and their families. And then nursing home innovation. As we saw throughout COVID-19, we did a lot of work to pivot and change our services. And it really just unveiled a lot of work that still is to be done to ensure that nursing homes provide the highest level of care for older adults and older adults with disabilities. And so we have here goal 3, inclusion and equity, not isolation. So we do have one goal here specifically calling out equity, but it is actually threaded throughout the entire plan, or baked in, not sprinkled on, as we like to say. So goal 3, inclusion and equity, not isolation, means we will have lifelong opportunities for work, volunteering, engagement, and leadership, and will be protected from isolation, discrimination, abuse, neglect, and exploitation. And here we really want to increase people's life satisfaction as we get older. A lot of these strategies, so here we have 6 of them, they actually fall into the wheelhouse of the California Department of Aging or within California Health and Human Services. So we have like closing the digital divide, which is absolutely an equity issue, but it's also a healthcare access issue. We want to ensure that everyone has access to high-speed broadband. We want to make sure that people actually not just have that access to that broadband, but then have a tool and then they know how to use it, have the skills to actually make the best use of that technology, whether it's to connect with family or to connect with their provider. That's particularly helpful. I think we don't need everyone driving to the doctor's office anymore. We can have, visits, televisits, when those actually make sense. Opportunities to work. So a lot of older adults continue to work, whether they want to or have to. For financial reasons. So we want to ensure that we combat ageism in the workplace and ensure that older adults find a place where they actually fit in and continue to be fulfilled through their work or continue to earn a living. And we really emphasize in this plan, of course, engagement across generations. This is just beneficial for the younger folks, just as it is for the older folks. To volunteer across generations, we have some strategies. In the strategy area, we have a handful of initiatives. And also just ensuring older adults volunteer a lot. Actually, there's no lack of older adults volunteering, but we want to make sure that they actually have a place, like let's say in like AmeriCorps programs and our like Climate Corps programs. Want to make sure that those well organized sorts of volunteer programs are actually targeting and doing outreach and making the most use and the best use of our older Californians. We also have protection from abuse, neglect, and exploitation. We're doing a lot of work on that right now. Soon there will be announced a California Elder Justice Coordinating Council, which is finally going to bring together the Attorney General's Office, California Health and Human Services, California Office of Emergency Services, and others to really like get a handle on the landscape of how do we protect older adults from abuse, neglect, and exploitation, whether it be the prevention as well as the prosecution, and have just a more coordinated, organized effort there. And then California Leadership in Aging. You could actually in the budget, you will see governor's budget is allocated a position for a cabinet level position to actually coordinate across aging and Alzheimer's disease, serve as a senior advisor. So that's very exciting. Those sorts of positions have often been held by people who are focused on early childhood issues. And now we have that attention focusing on older adults. Want to point out that at CDA, we do have a resource for you. We have been putting on this ensuring equity in aging peer-to-peer webinar series. So it's really for and by providers. We've been doing them. I think we've had 7 or 8 now. We do them on the first Wednesdays. This was our most recent one, Alzheimer's Association, that we did on culturally responsive services, support, and care for those who have Alzheimer's disease and dementia, or for their caregivers. So every month we have we focus on a certain population or a certain issue and address the intersectionality that of racism or gender identity or disability and accessing services. And if you have any ideas for one, you want to be a host, you can absolutely email me and I will work with you on developing content. And then Master Plan for Aging Goal 5, caregiving that works. We need to be prepared for and supported through the rewards and challenges of caring for aging and loved ones. We literally need 1 million more high quality caregiving jobs. We need healthcare career pathways. We need to pay people for the job that they're doing. We need to recognize them, and we need to give them the support to be the best caregivers they can be, to be the best direct care workforce that they can be. And so, but we also in this plan have support for family, informal or unpaid caregivers, such as paid family leave to provide support for a loved one. And then expanding our virtual care, just ensuring that folks are able to access healthcare attention or clinical behavioral health attention via virtual care if necessary. And did it click? Okay. So those were our 5 little goals. It's a lot of work, of course. It's a lot of strategies, a lot of goals, and then within there's 132 initiatives that we launched in January to actually hit the ground running and start implementing this plan with our cabinet level, with partners across the governor's cabinet. But we also have this data. So we have this data dashboard, and this is how we will monitor our progress over 10 years. But it is also a tool for locals. We have demographic data. Most of it's available at the local level. I would say it's at version 1.3 or 4 right now. It's constantly evolving. We're constantly improving and adding indicators. You know, there's a limitation to what data is out there that we can actually put onto this dashboard. This would be the demographic output profile. If you were to go onto the dashboard, you can access a demographic profile for your county. And that's actually something really helpful that you can bring to your board of supervisors or who you want to, lobby to help you focus on building age-friendly projects. So we have that landing page. We have the 5 bold goals. So all of the indicators in the dashboard are actually tied to our 5 bold goals. And then we have several visualizations to go along with each of those strategies. You can look at state trends and look at key indicators. And then we also have that profile of older adults. And we are adding sexual orientation, gender identity data to that demographic page very soon. This is actually a more clear picture of what you would print out at your local level. Let's say this is Stanislaus County. It does have to be aggregated. I'll warn you, it's confusing. You do have to go 2014 to 2018 to get local data. There's just not enough data per year to create these scorecards. We have to go ahead and combine those years. And here are the indicators that we have available at the local level. So you can see it's quite a bit. Goal 2 is full of indicators. I think that they'll be very interesting to you. And as well as goal 3 has quite a bit there. Housing's been a challenge for us, as has caregiving. So we're working to build out those sections of the data dashboard as we speak. Here's a sample of what it would look like if you, this is subsidized housing units per 10,000 people by county. So this is the state level visualization for housing, subsidized housing. And this would be if you went and drilled down to a county. And this is a different indicator though. This is actually, I believe, for county services or service gaps in different counties. And so I just clicked on YOLO on the map and it has a big pop-up box and it'll give you that local level information. And then we have the playbook. It's why you're all here. I don't need to go through this playbook with you, but we're really excited to create this tool for locals, to build relationships with the locals. This is our best effort at guiding folks through A to Z, planning and implementing and evaluating an age-friendly and disability-friendly project in your own community. And here we are on the homepage. Play one, use the governor's blueprint to engage your local leaders. So we know those local leaders are so important. We have recently met twice with California State Association of Counties, the Board of Supervisors. They had us back for a second meeting because they're so interested in working with the Master Plan for Aging. And I know that I hear from folks who are in these collaboratives that engaging your Board of Supervisors has been one of the most successful things, or one of those things that leads to the most success for that planning and implementation and getting your plan off the ground for local engagement. And here's play 4, where you would select the goal that you want to go ahead and implement. I just happen to select Transportation Beyond Cars for this one. You open up Transportation Beyond Cars and you can see that list of resources. If you have suggestions for resources, you can always send those to me. I built out this playbook. I feel like I vetted and searched for every solid, age-friendly planning resource I could find, people. And just a little bit about next steps. So, we have our 10 cabinet agency partners. We also have strong partners with local leaders, private sector, the federal government. And so we're going to launch those 132 initiatives. We've gotten a good start on several of them. We have new stakeholder committees to be named. We have an implementation committee called Impact. They'll advise on the work. It's essentially like the stakeholder advisor committee, version 2, the implementation version. Then we also have Equity and Aging Advisory Committee. They've already begun meeting. We will be launching the Elder Justice Coordinating Council. And we also recently launched the Disability and Aging Community Living Advisory Committee, which, if you're familiar with the Olmsted Committee, it's that Olmsted Committee, but with a refresh, some new voices. Had our first meeting last week. It was absolutely fantastic. Great discussion. People are passionate about this work. And of course, the governor's budget has several investments for aging, for that senior advisor position, for Alzheimer's and dementia, for community-based adult services, for modernizing the work we do. Whole slew of things. You can check that budget out. And then, of course, as was mentioned in the video, legislation is key. So Justice and Aging, one of our stakeholder partners, has put together a summary of all legislation at the state that's related to the Master Plan for Aging. So I can post that link in the chat in a second. And there's a little bit about local opportunities, just get you thinking about things. Our dream is that every county has a Master Plan for Aging. I know of 4, I'm sorry, there might be more, but we want to have every single county have a Master Plan for Aging. And you may have heard, it's part of the Master Plan that California is going to join the AARP Age-Friendly Network, and there's over 50 cities in California on that network. So that's a great way that we can build relationships. So explore that AARP stuff. And then, of course, there's several local priorities with housing and transportation, emergency preparedness. Behavioral health is something we're working a lot on right now. It's just a real lack of trained behavioral health professionals for older adult geriatric care. And then, of course, addressing racial justice. Up at the state, we are actually looking at the governance structure for all of our area agencies on aging. We're doing that with stakeholders. And we're also modernizing and streamlining so much of what we're doing at the department that we, of course, will help impacts down at that local level with our area agencies on aging and their contractors and partners. That sums it up. It's always a whirlwind tour of the Master Plan for Aging. That's our website. You can sign up for our newsletter here. And also that's the email address that you can send with any questions, comments, suggestions for the Master Plan for Aging. I'll hand it back to you, Mark.
Well, thank you. Well, Amanda, that was a fire hose of information. And I hope we can see that PowerPoint presentation, have that available for folks, because there's so much great information there. Wow, you've really laid it out very well. So thank you very much for that.